Distribution provided by Cloud Sigma, the cloud that adapts to you. Visit cloudsigma.com/thisweekin for a free $200 credit.
Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis. This is This Week in Startups, and for our startup of the week, a very innovative dating site called CoffeeMeetsBagel. Very popular, breaking out, very viral. You're going to love it. Stick around. A very interesting entrepreneur. Stick with us. Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis. This is This Week in Startups. Thank you for tuning in. If you're driving in your car, in your Tesla Model S, streaming Stitcher or TuneIn Radio from your dashboard, or you're doing Pilates and you've got me on the headphones, or you're watching YouTube, or you've got your Apple AirPlay device and you're watching on a 72-inch Samsung display, whatever you're doing. Maybe you're on this like Note, the big Note. Hey, thanks for tuning in. And you know what the show is about. The show is about startups, and we're very lucky to have a great series we've been doing called Startup of the Week. You know, on the show, we typically have people who have had a very successful business or two or three, or venture capitalists who have had incredible success. But we wanted to actually, get to startups a little bit earlier, hear about newer startups. And today we're going to meet a very interesting startup called CoffeeMeetsBagel. It's a dating site with a couple of twists, and people really are buzzing about it. So it's going to be a very interesting episode, and you're going to really enjoy CoffeeMeetsBagel.com if you want to pull it up. Please, if you're driving, don't pull it up. But if you're at the gym, you want to pull it up on your iPad mini, sure, go ahead. CoffeeMeetsBagel.com. But let me just take a moment to thank Scott Walker of the WalkerCorporate Law Group for sponsoring This Week in Startups. As you know, he's a boutique law firm, and he specializes in the representation of entrepreneurs. You can call him at 310-288-6667. 310-288-6667. Go ahead and call him. He is a big fan, Scott, and I know Scott for a long time, of fixed fees. So he'll give you this is how much I'm going to charge you. You're not going to get that sticker shock when you get the PDF from your attorneys that says like, oh my God, we charge you for these 50 extra hours or whatever. He'll just do a fixed rate. And his lawyers have 10, 20 years experience, including some of the biggest firms out there. So he's got some of those folks working at Walker Corporate Law, because it's a more boutique experience for them, and they get to work with entrepreneurs and not like be trying to overbill them or take advantage of them. I'm not saying other law firms do that. I'm not saying other law firms don't do that. But Scott Walker takes a very personalized approach. In fact, you should follow Scott himself, Scott Ed Walker, Scott E.D. Walker, Walker Corporate Law. What a great job they do. I highly recommend them. I know a lot of people have used their services. Even Tyler Crowley here from This Week in Startups uses Scott all the time. 310-288-6667. 310-288-6667. Walker Corporate Law. Thanks for helping us. Hey, today on the program, Arun Kang is here. Did I pronounce it correct, Arum?
Yes.
And it's Kang.
Yes.
Well, welcome to the program. Tell us, what is CoffeeMeetsBagel?
Yeah, well, CoffeeMeetsBagel simply is a daily curated introduction service through your friend network. So we make it really easy for people to meet new people, singles to meet new singles. Let me ask you this, actually. How did you meet your wife?
How did I meet my wife? Very personal question. I was at I actually met her twice, but the second time I met her was at a party. And it was just a friend of mine invited me to a house party, and she was there, and I saw her, and I said, wow, that's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life. I'm going to go talk to her. And I did that, and we went on a date the next day, and the next thing you know, we're married and have a kid.
Awesome. So, yeah, that's probably the most common way people meet each other, through mutual friends. And we basically make that happen every day. So the way it works is every day at noon, we introduce you to one person, most likely a friend of a friend on Facebook. We call these people bagels. And you have 24 hours to decide if you want to like or pass on this person. And if there's a mutual like, then we connect you directly by text message on a private phone line. So simple as that.
And so you've been doing this for how long, and how has it worked?
Yeah, so we launched our service in New York originally last year in April. And, so far we've made over 1 million matches, million introductions. And, I know personally tons of people who are now in relationships through our platform, as well as I recently actually heard a couple getting married in New York through CoffeeMeetsBagel.
So here's the
yeah, it's been
interface.
working.
I have a certain amount of time here, 22 hours, I guess. And tip, respond to earn 1 coffee bean and get better matches. So every time I match, I get a coffee bean.
Every time you respond, you'll get a coffee bean. So coffee bean is something we have on our platform. It's our form of virtual currency. And, our service is completely free, but there are certain things that you can do additionally with coffee beans. And so, there are certain things that we want the users to do, like, make sure you respond within 24 hours. So we give you coffee beans for that. If you put more pictures on your profile, we give you coffee beans for that. So it's just a fun way for people to do the right things, just so that you can connect better with other people.
So I'm looking at this guy. He says he's a bit nerdy. He's a cheerful optimist, jack of many trades. I don't like any of those qualities. I don't want somebody optimistic. I want somebody cynical. Too many jobs. That means he's not really. But he went to MIT. I guess that's kind of cool. But anyway, this guy wants a younger person who's younger than him, and they like a nice guy. So no, I want somebody who is a scoundrel. I'm going to pass. I see. Oh, must be the flavor. What went wrong? Or 1 coffee bean and help us figure it out. Okay. So this guy's doesn't have good looks. I'm not what he wants.
You have very high standard, Jason.
I do. Poor picture quality. Yes, I don't like his picture quality. He's too sappy for me. Any suggestions? Improve his profile. Be a man.
Specific as you can. That's always helpful.
Okay, so stop being so emo and start being a man. Just that's I'm going to confirm my pass there. So now you have that data. Does he get that information now that I've passed on him?
So basically what we're trying to do here is we want to use the daily information that we get about the user to make better matches in the future, as well as also help our members understand, why people are getting passed so they can actually do more to improve their profile.
And then here it says, buy Open Sesame for 65 beans to unlock mutual friends between you and your current bagel. What does that mean?
So, one of the most important aspects of our platform is that we make matches through your mutual friend network, so your social graph. And we found over time that having a mutual friend is actually really important. So if you have a mutual friend, you're 37% more likely to actually connect with that person than somebody who's a complete stranger. And then actually ideal number of mutual friends turns out to be about 4. And so we typically tell you how many mutual friends you have in common. And if you want to find out who they specifically are, then you use the coffee beans to unlock the identity.
So I pay every time for each of these folks. I can figure out how I relate to them. And exactly. I guess that's your business model. How much do these beans cost?
So the beans actually cost, 1 bean is about equivalent to 1 cent.
Oh, okay.
So the Open Sesame, that was about 50 beans.
Yeah.
And so we have items that vary from 50 to, all the way up to 350 now. And we are just sort of beginning to actually launch and develop services for the coffee shop. So we'll be adding a lot more down the road.
And here, look, somebody liked me on 317, apparently. That's great. And so this idea, how did you come up with this idea? Is this something that originated in Japan, I think, or something? Wasn't there some dating sites like this in Asia? Is that correct?
So there is actually a dating service very similar to this in Korea. But the original idea really came to us because we got inspired by Guild Group. And so, we were, the 3 of us, the founders, are sisters.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the 3 of us were living in New York City. And, the reality is after you graduate from school, it just becomes really hard to meet new people because, everybody's so busy and you end up sort of hanging out with your same group of friends all the time. And so, we were always just asking each other, like, where are all the good guys? And a lot of our friends were actually asking each other that question too. So, we tried online dating services, etc. And frankly, none of them really worked. I think typically what online dating service is very good at is giving you lots and lots of choices and options of profiles to browse through. When you really think about that, that's really unnatural. You in life, like, you never get like hundreds of people to, especially strangers, to choose from at once. And so, with Coffee Meets Bagel, we wanted to change that, and we actually looked at other products, especially in the e-commerce space, products that actually give people excitement and give people something to look forward to every day. So the idea really came from Guild Group, where they really do a great job curating a selection of products that people get really excited about. And so we thought, okay, what if we actually just transfer that into dating space? And so that was the birth of Coffee Meets Bagel.
And so you've raised a little bit of capital already, $600,000 from Lightbank and one of the Match.com founders, correct?
Yes.
And so raising money for a dating site, hard, difficult, easy? What did you find? Did people like that space? I mean, you went with somebody who obviously has made some money in the space before with Match.com.
Yeah. The truth is, it's very tough. This is a very crowded, competitive space. You have a lot of new products and companies coming in to solve that holy grail problem of, how do you make it easy for people to meet each other? So it's definitely not an easy space to raise money. And frankly, a lot of investors are very skeptical because of all these newcomers who sort of just kind of trend in and then fade away very quickly.
And you moved the company from New York to San Francisco. Why was that? I thought New York was like becoming the startup hub of the world. You left New York for San Francisco? It seems like a bad deal to me.
I know. Personally, I still really miss New York. But we decided to move the company, and I think it was the right choice because mostly because of talents. And in New York, yes, it is becoming a hub of startups, but to find great engineers, it's still really tough. And I'm not saying San Francisco is easy, but at least here, what I see is more supply of great engineers and more fluidity in terms of people just moving from one startup to another. So there's a lot more opportunity for me to meet new engineers who are interested in new opportunities, whereas New York, that was really hard.
So great for media people, great for salespeople, but maybe a little bit hard on the tech talent front in New York is what you're saying.
Exactly, yeah.
And so now your sisters are your co-founders?
Yes. So actually, one of them is my twin sister, and the other one is older sister, Sue.
So you three sisters running one company. Who is there? One CEO or three CEOs? And how do you split up the work? And who gets to win if you have a debate and you disagree? 2 out of 3?
It's tough. Yeah. I don't believe in co-CEOs. I think even at a small company, there needs to be a very clear leader and somebody who can make the executive decision when push comes to shove. And so my role is that I'm the CEO. My twin sister, who also has a business background, but she has finance background. I've pretty much been in consumers product space all my life, and so she handles most of the biz dev, finance, marketing, whatnot. I deal a lot with product, and then our older sister Sue, she's the head of creative. So she's been a designer, mostly working with luxury brands for almost a decade now. And so our roles are very clear, but that's not to say we don't have disagreements.
And so you get to win the disagreements if you do have one, I guess, as the CEO. I like that the co-CEO thing doesn't work. I agree. That's always the tell as an investor. If there's like too many people, if you're thinking about doing co-CEOs and you're listening to the program, don't do that. It just basically means you can't make decisions and you don't understand how startups work. Co-CEO, very bad idea. Maybe for an interim or for the first year, fine, but generally a bad idea. So tell me about the partnership with Starbucks. What is that exactly?
Well, you know what? That's something. So we're constantly here experimenting with different ideas. And so one of the natural things that we are looking into is, how do you make it easy for people who connect to actually just meet up? And what we qualitatively have found out is, once they connect on their text message, if they don't meet up within 2 to 3 days, the chances of them actually meeting up really goes down a lot. And so the question is, how do we actually help these guys who connect on text message actually meet up in person? And so what we tried initially in New York when we launched is we partnered with a bunch of local, dessert shops, coffee shops, wine bars, things like that, to actually give complimentary incentives for couples to actually go there on their first date, which a lot of people liked. But what we realized is also the location can be an issue. So, when it comes to, Starbucks is universally, it's everywhere. So that's one of the things that we have actually tried temporarily to see how people respond.
Got it. And is that a deal with Starbucks? And then are they paying you? How does that work? Or are you just sending them to Starbucks?
Paying us, even the partnerships that we had with locals, it's been very informal just because we're still small, we're starting out, and these are very experimental things that we're trying. But as we go down the road, if it makes sense to, form this as a more official partnerships, we'll go ahead and do that.
Now, if you're successful, you lose a customer, right? Is that like if you do a really good job, you lose your customer? Address that. I mean, doesn't the dating business suck? I mean, if you are so good at finding me a match, then I stay out of the system. What do you do when you lose customers at such a high frequency? The better you do, the worse off you are.
Yeah. I get that question all the time. The way I feel about it is, the flip side of this is we have tons of sort of new users, fresh out of school, college graduates coming into the market and needing a service like this every year. So yes, there are people leaving because they find each other, but there's also, great pool of people coming in as well. And the way I see this is if you leave because you found somebody on our platform, you're the ambassador. This product basically helped you find the love of your life, and you're going to be the best ambassador out there. So we're actually really happy if people stop the service because they find somebody, because they're going to go out there and tell all of their friends, which is what we want. And then other thing is, yes, we do make it easy for you to meet up, and so it's a great opportunity for you to meet, new, interesting, quality people. But at the end of the day, finding that right person, it's still hard, and it's still going to take some time.
Is this something where it appeals to younger people, Gen Y, millennials, over, let's say, Gen X or even baby boomers? Like, do you have 50-year-olds and 60-year-olds coming into the system saying, I want to have this kind of experience? And then does that sort of change your brand? And how are you mitigating against that?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly have, people in their 50s trying out the service. Our product tends to be around people in their 20s and 30s for now because we do leverage Facebook. So, Facebook heavy users tend to be around that age bracket. But what we say is that the beauty of using, social graph of individual user is we can give you, a right relevant matches for 50-year-old based on his social graph, which is very different from the social graph of a 30-year-old. And so that's sort of how we see it, and that's how we keep our matches very relevant.
And how do you, who has bought the most beans? And how have they used the beans? Like, I mean, is there somebody in here who just can't find love and they're a complete disaster and they've spent $1,000 on beans so far?
You know what? What's really funny?
And discount my account, okay? So taking my account aside, who's the biggest loser in the system?
So I think typically what people think is, the most desperate people who don't really find anyone are the ones who, tend to spend the most money. That's not what we see on our platform. Actually, what's interesting is males spend just as much money as females, which you don't see in a lot of other platforms.
Why is that?
And our beans, actually, the items that you can purchase with beans tends to focus more on entertainment value and something, more data on yourself that you can find out rather than, spend the beans so you can send more messages, or you can't see profiles of people if you don't buy or if you don't pay up. That's not the model that we want to pursue.
Got it. So basically, if I'm on vacation for 10 days or I dated somebody for a month, I might have 30 bagels that I missed, and I can go back for $2.65 and check on those bagels, so to speak.
So if you missed your bagels, you can actually request a second chance by requesting a rematch. Yes, that's 250 beans. Now we do, if you're inactive on our service for extended period of time, we do put your account temporarily on hold and you can reactivate it, because we also don't want to match people with, if you're not active.
So what is the person who spent, who's a whale in your system, right? Like Zynga talks about whales. Have you had somebody spend over $500 in the system yet?
Our items are microtransactions, so we haven't had people spend more than $500 yet. But the beauty of this is we are constantly experimenting with what's the sort of the price points we can charge, etc. So as we introduce more higher priced items, because right now the most expensive item is $3.50.
Yeah,
I'm sure we can get to that point.
So when you talked earlier, you told me you grew up in Korea. How is the internet different in Korea, and how does that inform your design here in the U.S.? Like, what works in Korea that doesn't work here? What works in Korea that you think will work here eventually? Obviously, you grew up on Naver and Daum, I'm taking it. So how does that inform your entrepreneurial career now in the United States?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think for the most part these days, up to this point, you've seen a lot of ideas that bubble up in the U.S. sort of get seeded in the in other countries, whether it's Korea, etc. And good example that I can think of is like Groupon, which got popular a couple of years ago. Exactly, in other countries it sort of got replicated, moved on. But I think the latest trend, what you see now, and I think what you'll see more, is ideas from other countries like Korea sort of being planted here. So, for example, this dating service in Korea called Arum, it's very similar to us, and we didn't necessarily get the idea from there, but actually it started earlier in Korea. Yeah. And so we do get a lot of inspiration from them, and different ideas that we can do to evolve our product. Definitely, we try to look at them and see sort of what's worked for them and what hasn't worked for them. What's kind of challenging for the U.S., specifically in the dating industry, that Koreans don't face is there's so much more diversity here. And so in Korea, people look the same. They're very, very homogeneous, right? And so when it comes to matching, etc., it tends to be a lot easier. Whereas U.S., there's different ethnicities, there are different religious backgrounds, etc. So those tend to play a larger role here.
So it's more complex because we have a melting pot in the United States. There's just so much diversity. And I mean, actually, that's why they verticalize, right? You have J-Date, and you have dating sites that are urban, younger, gay, lesbian, and all kinds of...
We definitely don't see that in Korea.
One dating service for everybody, and that's it.
Fits all, yeah.
And what about the trend? I see you're going after microtransactions and virtual currency. What about this trend around stickers? We saw path-added stickers like, I guess, Naver Line and some other services have stickers and charms and some of the stuff that we've seen out of Japan as well in that regard. And Japan and China seem to have some common DNA with this charms and stickers and virtual goods, between Mixi and also Naver and Daum doing this similar things. Do you think that's going to translate here? Like, so I might want to put a charm or a sticker on that person to flirt with them for $1?
You know what? I totally see that coming here. And I mean, even Path, I was just reading that the revenue they generated from those stickers in a day was, greater than the revenue they've had ever so far. And what's really interesting is those sticker and emoticons, actually, it's been popular in Asia for years now, right? So it started way, way back. And I've seen my friends actually communicate on their phone solely with emoticons, not even typing anything. They sort of just exchange whatever they're feeling or whatever they're trying to express just through these stickers, which was sort of mind-blowing to me. But I kind of see the direction going that way, We're getting, people are just becoming more lazy, and we tend to draw, one of the big advice that I got when we were developing product is try to make people have to type less because they tend to prefer clicking. So I sort of see the trend going that way. I can totally see people using, WhatsApp or whatnot, these messaging services, using stickers primarily over text. And I think that trend is only going to get further in the U.S.
So raising an A round, how is that going? You guys must be, you raised $600,000, so that's going to take you only so far. Are you experiencing the Series A crunch? Are you getting a lot of attention? What do you need to prove to get that really difficult but important A round?
Yeah, so definitely, we are beginning to fundraise. We'll be fundraising soon. And I think one of the most important thing in this particular industry that often people ignore is revenue generation and when are you going to hit profitability? Because it is a crowded space. And so my intention is to keep our team as lean as possible and, try to get to a point where we would have the option not to raise further. And if we do want to raise because we want to accelerate growth or do whatnot, but if we don't want to raise, to be able to have that option, by Series B. So that's sort of the big milestone we're trying to achieve. So yes, we're focusing on growth, and being the consumer tech company, growth is one of the most important metrics that people see. But I think especially in this industry, the engagement and revenue metrics are also very important.
So maybe some of your contemporaries, people who are building social networks or photo sharing apps or games, they're just optimizing for growth. You actually have to optimize for profitability, revenue, and people actually getting value out of the service because you have serious competitors like Match.com and eHarmony.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and the subscription model is very attractive for any type of business, but we actually, in my opinion, that's going to be obsolete in a few years sooner rather than later. I think as services like ours come up, where people get used to using the services for free and only paying for the values they actually get out, I think that's sort of the trend that you'll see, and you already see that trend in other digital content industries like gaming, music, etc. And so we definitely think this is a business model that's viable and creatively actually generate revenue at the same time create value for the customers.
Arun Kang of CoffeeMeetsBagel, I wish you tremendous success. I think you're onto something great, and you and your sisters, I think, are going to crush it. Congratulations on the early success and moving to the Valley. And everybody who's listening, obviously go check out CoffeeMeetsBagel.com. And if you got a single friend who's picky and you're just having a hard time finding them a mate, this is the way to do it. Just throw them on Coffee Meets Bagel and get them to buy some coffee beans, and I think they're going to find somebody perfect real soon. Wish you tremendous success. And the Harvard MBA, is that an asset at this point, or when you tell people you're a Harvard MBA, do they roll their eyes?
I've heard in the startup space, MBAs don't mean anything. And sometimes I do feel like that. I'm like the slave here while our engineers, they do all the hard work. But, the network is still tremendous. Even in the Valley, I have to say, whenever I meet with investors, et cetera, I tend to have a lot of people in mutual friends and connections because of the degree that I have.
Yeah, Mark Pincus went to Harvard to get his MBA. There's a bunch of famous people in the Valley with Harvard MBAs, and I'm sure parents are very proud of that as well. Somebody was on the show recently. They said they took their Harvard MBA off of their bio because they felt like it gave them less credibility as an entrepreneur. I thought that was pretty funny.
What is this world becoming?
Exactly. Well, it is actually an interesting thing in the world now. If you're smart and you give advice or successful, people attack you for it. I mean, look at poor Sheryl Sandberg. She writes a great book telling people, hey, here's how to be successful, and everybody hates her for it. Well, not everybody, but a certain group. Did you read her book, Lean In?
You know what? I just bought it on my Kindle. I haven't read it yet.
But you like the concept? Do you agree with her general concept that women maybe shy away from opportunity a little bit too much? Do you see that in other females?
You know what? I actually, when I graduated from HBS, one of the stats that I read was within 5 years, 50% of the HBS female graduates are actually out of the workforce, which is really, really sad. After all that you go through, and I mean, just even the financial investments you make after 5 years that you get out of the workforce. I compare that to Asia, especially not particularly Korea, but places like Hong Kong. I see a lot of women still in the, workforce, especially like in finance too, because they actually get a lot of help at home because helpers are so readily available and it's cheaper. Yeah. And so I think, those kinds of system definitely needs to be there. But I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to the individuals. You just have to make the right choices that's right for you.
Yeah, I agree with that. Listen, I can't wait till you read the book. We should do a whole episode on just people who've read the book and what they think of it. I actually have the book and I need to read it. But continued success. Everybody check out Coffee Meets Bagel. And thanks to my friends at Walker Corporate Law. Thanks, Scott, for sponsoring this program and independent media. You can follow. You got what is your Twitter handle? ARUMKANG. ARUMKANG. Everybody follow her on Twitter. And, of course, you can follow at TWI Startups for This Week in Startups. And we'll see you all next time on This Week in Startups.